where I am. This is me. I have over 20 years in the field of counseling and therapy. I'm licensed in 3 states currently, which is Georgia, Texas, and South Carolina. As you heard in there, certified in clinical trauma professional, clinically trained in trauma assessment through the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs. That was one I thought that was really important for me to have. A little bit about, ouch, oh, wait a minute, that wasn't supposed to go that fast. A little bit about my background on that is because my father, who is a vet, suffered from PTSD from the Vietnam War, and currently found out that he suffered from dementia. So he was recently diagnosed with dementia. So there's a lot of things that transpired in there that made me go and get this certification through Department of Veteran Affairs. Certified as specialist in sex trafficking, addiction, substance abuse, whatever. So that's just a little bit about me in general. These are the 3 things I would like to kind of hit on today with today's presentation. What are some of the stigmas about therapy that make men hesitant to seek care? 2, the importance of emotional clarity in your everyday life. And 3, practical steps to prioritize your mental health. Let's start from number 1. I wish this thing would stop moving. I'm getting used to this. What are some of the stigmas about therapy that makes men hesitant to seek care? What are some of the stigmas that we hear? What are some of the things that we're told? What is it? Pride. Stigmas.
You need to figure it out yourself.
Okay.
You're not a man if you
There you go. You're not a man. It's a woman's issue. Anything else?
Black people don't have issues.
Black people don't have issues. Any other stigmas that you heard? Any other stigmas? Okay.
Something severely wrong with you.
Okay. Something severely wrong, right? How many you got? We have how many generations here? 3? Who's your youngest person? 19? So we have roughly 3 generations. So we have a couple boomers and Gen X's, right? I don't think we have nothing past boomers in here, do we? Okay. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think we have boomers, Gen X, and then I forgot what millennial. Gen Z. Yeah, 4 generations. So we have millennials too, right? Any millennials? Okay, so we have 4 generations here. Okay, so for individuals that are part of that Gen X community and the boomers, you guys remember when you were younger, you always had a family member that people didn't really talk about that stayed with Big Mama or stayed with an auntie, but they were always in that back room somewhere, or they were always kind of sitting in a chair off to the side, nobody really talked to or mentioned anything, and they say, yo, don't go over there, don't bother them or whatever. You know what I mean? Something wrong with them. But they don't ever let them socialize with anybody because it was a taboo subject. Any of y'all remember that? Okay, that's what mental health looked like back then. But then also think about it with men especially, right? When you had a man dealing with mental health back then, what did they usually do? Oh, so-and-so is crazy. Oh, don't go over there with Larry or whoever. Stay away from Larry. Larry got problems. Larry be the one that you'll see, walking down the street or walking down the road, kind of talking to himself and making little noise and hand gestures and, things like that, right? So everybody, and people made jokes. Let's be real. People made jokes, picking at people and call, oh, you look like Larry, or you act like Larry, or whatever you want to call him, right? People did it, right? But that's what mental health looked like back then because they didn't have a clear understanding of what the needs were and how to treat them. Because everything, honestly, was saying, hey, go to the man in the cloth. Pray about it. Go to the church or what have you, right? But how many of you realize that didn't really help Larry, right? Larry was still walking up and down that block, mumbling to himself, whatever else, all day long. And nobody cared to figure out what was wrong with Larry. And if they did, where did they take him? To the hospital, right? So Larry got committed. Larry never saw a therapist, right? How many of you knew anybody in your family prior to yourself or someone else that actually saw a therapist? You guys probably will because of your generation. But anybody before you guys, how many of y'all can answer that question?
Didn't happen.
Think about it. How devastating could that have been to be Larry walking down that street, everybody pointing and laughing and picking, but Larry has schizophrenia or delusional thinking, hallucinating and all that. But the only treatment Larry can get is to be sent to the local hospital for them to give him some medicines, lock him down for a while, and then let Larry back out on the street. No follow-up, right? So Larry never gets help. And that's been a stigma, right? That's been a stigma. Whenever you see somebody walking down the street mumbling or whatever, oh, that's what mental health look like, especially with men, right? So let's jump over to number 2 real quick. The importance of emotional clarity in your everyday life. As men, we have so many things going on in our heads at one single time in a day that most of the time we don't even think about ourselves, do we? We always think about how we're going to make rent, how we're going to make mortgage, how we're going to do this. The kids need this, the wife need that, or whoever need this. We don't think about what we need emotionally for ourselves half the time. And if I ask you right now, I'm going to ask, anybody can answer this question. Emotionally, what do you need right now?
I don't know. Loyalty.
Who said something? You said loyalty. Why do you feel that you need loyalty emotionally? That's an emotional need for you? Or is that a social need for you? Both. Why is it both?
Because if I'm like going through something or whatever, I know at least I can like my brother here. He's loyal to me. Like I can go to him. And, like if I'm down, I can speak to him. It's comforting.
Okay. What about anybody else?
Somebody said, I don't know.
You said I don't know.
Is that a fair answer? I don't know. I mean, sometimes we get lost. I don't know what I need.
Exactly.
Words come on, same routine every day.
Comfort? Did you guys hear that? Comfort. Would you have said that outside of this room to anybody else? Why not?
Nobody don't want to hear that.
No, I mean, but think about it. Think about it. If the question wasn't asked in this room, he said he would have never said anything about it.
No man go around talking about he need comfort. You kidding me?
Somebody say, man,
just don't do that.
Exactly. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So if we can't talk about it, then how are we supposed to understand emotional clarity in our everyday lives? Because that's a need for him. It's comfort. He needs comfort right now, right? How many people you think you can turn to get comfort? How many of you can echo that?
I'm too busy trying to comfort my sisters right now.
There you go. That is typical for most of us. Practical steps to prioritize your mental health. We talked about some of the things in there already that you can do, exercise. We'll get to that in our presentation as well, right? Let's jump to the next one. Stigmas that prevent men from seeking therapy. Societal norms. Men are expected to be strong, stoic, and self-sufficient. That's the general expectation from the beginning of time. As men, this is what we do. We hunters, well, technically in most societies, we're not necessarily the gatherers. We are the hunters, but the women are the gatherers. But to be strong, stoic, and self-sufficient is how we've been taught to operate, right? Culturally, that's how it goes across the board, right? Lack of awareness. Men may not be aware of these seriousness of the symptoms that come with poor mental health, so they disregard the symptoms because they are not that bad. How many of us said that? Oh, it's all good. How many times we said, I'll be all right. It's all good. Ain't no big deal. Yeah, no big deal. Yeah, no big. How many times we said that? Yeah, I'm good. Hey man, you all right? I'm good. Nah, it's all right. That's all right. You can darn near break your hand and be like, I'm good. I'm all right. I'm all right. Shake it off. I just got to shake it off. I'll be all right. But when you really think about it, who knows when you go in behind that closed door and you crying, them tears dropping and your shirt soaking wet and snotty because you're not all right. One of the key things that they said in there earlier was it's okay not to be okay. And I don't think men have been told that enough, that it's okay not to be okay. These type of societal norms, even though they were supposed to be there to teach us value, hard work, how to sustain our families, but the detriment of that is it didn't really teach us how to be real men. And I know that's a hard statement to make to some folks because we all feel that we're real men, right?
That's a question.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard that phrase out there, and I'm gonna be honest, I struggle with this. It's not okay. It's okay not to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna tell you why, as I mentioned in our last brief, it feels like I think as men, we don't want to be looked at as victims. And I think some of that stereotype in terms of what we're supposed to be, we're trying to avoid being victims. I guess my question is, how do we deal with this without saying I'm a victim as if somehow I'm just helpless?
And that's
And I know I
perception.
need help, but at the same time, I don't want to be a victim as if somehow you gotta, you know what I'm saying?
It's a mindset that we have to look at, and we have to shift our mindset and how we look at the particular situation of being vulnerable versus helpless. We might be vulnerable, we may not necessarily be helpless. And I think that's where the hang up is in that is that when we say we're vulnerable to something, we automatically determine that we're helpless. We can't do nothing about it, or there's nothing we can say about it. But in actuality, it's not. Vulnerability is basically saying, I don't have the understanding or the capacity at the moment to do this particular thing effectively, if we look at it that way. And that's what vulnerability is. It's like right now, I don't have the answer. I don't have this thing at the moment. And if we learn to change our mindset to think that way, it'll be a lot easier for us to say, man, look, I ain't okay. I'm not good. You know, and a part of that comes with a societal norm. That comes with this is trust. That is a big issue with men, is trust. Who do you trust and why do you trust them? And what can you trust them with? Like I tell people, there's people that I trust in my life and there's people I trust in my wife. They ain't always the same too. They ain't always the same. You see what I'm saying? And that's the truth. You see what I'm saying? You just got to know who you can trust. And why is trust important? Because most of the time we're taught not to trust, especially if it's somebody that don't look like us. We're taught, you know how many times I get asked as a therapist, you know, hey man, you know, I want to cut you a black man, da da da. You can understand me. You know what? Bro, I don't understand you. What do you mean? We black. No. We got totally different cultural experiences, even though we're black. Just because we black don't mean I understand you. You know what I mean? But that's the mentality of you can we can always identify. Yeah, this thing's commonly we can. But you grew up in North, right? Like Jersey area, New York area? Yeah. So your experiences growing up in Brooklyn is totally different than his growing up in LA. You're Lubbock, right? Yeah, Lufkin, Texas. I'm South Carolina. Anybody else? Another state? Alabama. And so Alabama and Georgia are real close to each other. How similarity the culture is, right? So you had 5 different cultures in here: Louisiana, Texas, California. Even though we all black men, our experiences are different. Totally different.
You ain't black, bro.
Look, you close enough to us, I'm gonna call you one. You close enough. You blend in very well. Yeah, he blend in very well. You know, he a red bone right now. He a red bone. But I mean, think about it, guys. Yes.
I'm a military brat.
Exactly. Totally different.
I grew up everywhere in different countries. Through my early childhood.
Exactly. And that's where that comes from. So just because we share what is Hispanic or okay, so you close enough. We all the same. We got the same struggles. Same struggles. Cause look, same struggles because I deal with a lot of Hispanics too, coming out of Florida and being here. So we got the same exact struggles with these societal norms and everything else. It's almost identical, which is crazy that we do. But that's the kind of societal norms is this is what we're supposed to do. And trust, what does trust look like? Trust coming out of Lubbock, Texas, look totally different than California, than New York, than Alabama, than Louisiana, than South Carolina. Trust looks different. You know what I mean? And we don't take time to think about that. You know, so I may see him because the way the North and the South look at each other, it's like they don't trust people just because most of the time We're gonna trust you on principle until you do something. They don't trust you at all until you choose that they can trust you. So that's what that looks like. You know what I mean? And lack of awareness. If we're not aware of these things or the symptoms that we're feeling, you know, how do we know when to get help? You see what I'm saying? Fear of being judged. That's what you brought up earlier. Men often feel that transgression in masculine ideas causes them to appear weak or less competent. This is especially in areas like law enforcement, military, fire and rescue, and the corporate world. How many of you guys worked in any of these fields before? Exactly. So think about it. You're now doubling up, right? You're doubling down on it. So not only are you a man, you're a man in one of these fields or have done, jobs in one of these areas. Now you got to be more of a man, right? So you can't walk into work and let Tom and them see you crying or, worried about your family or worried about the fact that you can't feed your household. You can't worry about that. You walk in, how's it going today? Oh, I'm doing good. Everything is fine. In actuality, everything at home is falling down. That's and that's double pressure on us. Do you know what kind of pressure that feels like? That you can't trust nobody to say, hey man, I'm having some issues at home. I can't come in today. Because that paycheck says if you don't get here, we don't care about your issues at home. So we learn to push it aside, right? Cultural influences. Our cultural norms, beliefs, and values directly influence our decision on how men handle mental health issues. Can someone give me a cultural influence that from your particular culture that you say would influence your ability to seek proper mental health treatment?
What we say is that, therapy is white people stuff.
I've heard that. I've heard that. Yes. I hear that a lot. From Hispanic men, I hear that a lot.
A lot of times too, we don't like people all in our business. You can't tell everybody your business. So right.
Yep.
A man is able to drink after work, so he should be able to drink every day if that's what he chooses.
Yep.
I was gonna say the same thing about it's a white people thing, but it's also to piggyback on that, it's a rich people thing.
It's the rich people. Okay. Somebody else I saw. Wheat. Exactly. What else? What's another cultural thing that you've heard from your culture, your environment that you're from?
That what they don't act like them.
Don't act like. And who's them?
You know them is.
See, you see what I'm saying? Exactly. You see what I'm saying? Exactly what I'm saying. That's it. That's exactly what it is. Because nobody would never. How many times you knew and understood what that was, but how many times you heard it said? You see what I'm saying? Now I'm gonna point one person out because he ain't said that yet, and I've been waiting for him to jump in this conversation. He hasn't, but because he ain't technically from around here, but he from around here, and there's a lot of this stuff that plays into that culture that prohibits a lot of stuff. But I'm waiting for him to say something. He ain't saying nothing yet, because he know who I'm talking about. Because this is very, very prominent in your culture, very prominent. What are some of the things that you could share on this?
I can share this. With me, with life right now, I learned to start loving myself more. The more you love yourself, the less stress you go through. So focus on you love God first, love yourself. Love everybody else after you. Don't look for love for no one.
What are some of your cultural norms that speak as far as mental health goes?
Well, our culture, we don't have the big issue. Because we like a whole family, the whole island is a family. So we look out for each other. No matter your color, it's who you are and what you look like. That's in the island focus.
And what if somebody did come up with mental health issues?
Huh?
What if somebody did come up with a mental health issue?
If they told me they're gay?
Mm-hmm.
Chop their head.
No, I mean, but no, this real talk though, real talk. That's what I'm saying, real talk, real talk. That's it, real talk. I mean, this is not whatever because we didn't talk before, so I enjoy his culture. I love it. If I can go and live there, I'll live there all day long. So that's why I was saying that because out of all of us, his culture is really different as well. You see what I'm saying? So that's why I wanted him to chime in on that.
We just focus on love each other.
Exactly. So that's what that looks like. So here's how cultural influences and societal expectations impact. Societal expectations, traditional masculinity norms emphasize the following: strength and resiliency, discouragement of emotional expression and self-reliance. Societal stigmas are the following stigmas exist as it relates to seeking help: fears of judgment, negative attitude towards mental health, and lack of awareness. Cultural differences. These differences impact men in the following ways: varying norms as it relates to masculinity, traditional practices, mistrust of healthcare system. Cultural and societal factors create significant barriers for men seeking therapy, impacting their willingness to acknowledge their struggles, seek help, and engage in treatment. Addressing these issues require a collective effort to challenge traditional masculinity norms, promote positive attitudes towards mental health, and create a supportive environment where men feel comfortable seeking help. The first one up here, as far as the societal expectations, traditional masculinity discouragement of emotional expression and self-reliance. Don't cry, suck it up. Boys don't cry, men don't cry. Suck it up. It don't hurt that bad.
You know, being a male and in a female industry, because I was a male nurse, you get a lot of times the first thing you think just because you're a nurse that you get is not necessarily true.
Exactly.
Not necessarily true.
That is true.
By a long shot.
Very much so. Your roles that you play on your jobs, like you said, are you in a traditional male role at home? You know, and okay, let's tap on that. What are societal expectations for you as a man in your household?
Bring on the bacon.
Pay all the bills.
Bring on the bills. Bring on the bacon.
Protect them.
And whoop the kids.
Okay. So what would you say to a stay-at-home dad? Weak?
Culture.
Today's society
It's changing. It's changing.
I was
The young
What was that? But I mean, think about it now. We're talking about societal expectations, right? What society says. Huh? What's wrong with you? You lazy. Or whatever.
I mean, today it's a little bit different. You know, just because you're staying home dad, you still have responsibilities to take care of. I mean, sometimes in today's society too, women make a lot of money. Sometimes their careers are up on the roof. And if you got kids and you got a lot of things and it don't balance, you can, you know, I'm not lazy. But
exactly. There you go.
I was asking him, I said, I think it's generational, because in our society, I'm sure you all would agree, probably, in our society, that would be an issue.
Yeah, really issue.
In our 20s, if we were in our 20s, and you were a stay-at-home dad, you'd have a hard time showing up at clubs. But I think for them, it's just not, I don't think they hate it, they're neutral on it. It's not an issue. That's what you do, that's what you do. So I think the time's changing. I don't know, some of the young people can speak to it.
I don't know. It'd be hard for me.
I mean, I would say I grew up with a friend. His dad was a stay-at-home dad, but his mom was like a corporate lawyer. So like his dad was just kind of at home taking us to practice and all those things.
You gotta look at she was
But it is about
But you gotta look at when we said she was a lawyer, she was considered in a man's field, because actually that's how come nursing started paying more money as more men got into nursing. Then we started making more money. Otherwise, nurses didn't make no money.
That is true.
Maybe your wife doesn't respect you as a norm.
Yeah.
Maybe your wife doesn't respect you?
You can't tell her nothing.
Okay. Prime example.
She working, she gonna say, how you gonna say you're head of the household and you ain't working?
But you
make more money.
exactly. But you do know there's a lot of women out there nowadays that come through therapy and have made these comments of, I would rather him stay at home and let me make the money versus him going out and not making enough money. I've heard, no, seriously. No. That's true. But I'm saying, but that's what you're starting to hear now, because somebody said about the careers and the money going up. I'm hearing a lot of that now. Is that I would rather him stay at home, take care of the kids or take care of the house, Let me make the money versus him going out and not making enough money. Not the fact that he ain't making no money at all, not making enough money.
Well, also, Rodrigo, you have a lot of men or males these days that would rather stay home. Because I have a lot of female employees. They taking care of him, and he's cool with staying home.
And like I was saying, one of the things that you'd be surprised about money, because when I came out as a brand new nurse in 1982, money I was making was nothing. I was making like $5 and something cents an hour as an RN.
Yeah.
Now you go in a place and make $50 an hour.
Exactly. Yep. And that's becoming the cultural norm right now. You know, the more and more women are starting to get degrees and moving up, and you know, and that we're going to see a shift again because and I don't want to dive into this. I'm just brush crushing real quick because now that diversity, equity, inclusion is now being eliminated again, you're going to see a shift in that going back the other way. But when that was coming in and becoming popular, there are a lot more women that are making more money than men out there, and men are not making. And these women are feeling that I'd rather him stay, not because he's not making enough. And it's like, well, what is enough? You know, 50 grand, 80 grand, 30 grand. You know, what is enough for a person to make to say it's okay for them to work or not work? You know what I mean? And nobody stops and asks that question. But that's coming up. So those are actual societal expectations and norms. And can you imagine being a man and someone come to you and your woman says, you know what, I'd rather you just stay at home. You know, what kind of think about this. What kind of mental what kind of but think about it. What kind of mental impact would that have on you?
You don't feel appreciated. Situation changes.
For a man, I think being appreciated is very important, and that would be a cold slap in the face.
Exactly.
I would probably say, just kind of speaking to it a little bit. I think for us men too, we have societal norms and all stuff with family, dating, whatever, career. Women, particularly black women, go in those higher positions and all that. But we also see a lag in black men seeking those type of positions as well, especially more current generation. And also what I found, not putting myself in there, we as men, we don't know how to regulate our emotions. Sometimes we tend to overthink things. Like I remember I was just having a conversation with a female friend, and I was just talking about this stuff. This was a while ago. And she's like, you know what, she's like, you know what, I've noticed that you men, she said, you guys will create these catastrophes in your mind about, oh yeah, I gotta make sure I have enough money for me and my family whenever we get good, or I gotta make sure I, strapped up when I go outside because you never know somebody gonna come in and try me and my woman. And then my female friend, she said, y'all don't even want to just live life and enjoy it. Y'all so on guard on everything that we like. Well, damn, we just going to Hawaii on vacation. We ain't even trying to like kill nobody. And I do think that I don't know if what is indoctrinated in us. I don't know if it's because Jim Crow. I don't know if it's because of slavery. Probably a combination of all those things. This institutionalized racism. But I think that not just only society. Well, I guess society is affecting us, but we ourselves place ourselves under a microscope, and we put ourselves in that burden without necessarily anyone placing us on that burden. Sometimes I think we tend to think too much about things instead of just doing. We just think, and then we kind of think ourselves out. Whereas I was opposed to a lot of women that I see, they don't really. I'm not saying they don't think, but they don't get consumed with their emotions or their thoughts. They just typically say, well, I know this is how I'm feeling right now, but I gotta move on. We'll sit there and our thoughts become our reality. And a lot of times our thoughts are not that.
That's true. That's true.
To speak on some of that, a lot of it does stem from, our environment or what we grew up at or what we went through in life. And everything. So, sometimes you have to be on guard. You know, how many times have you been pulled over by the police and been mistreated? You know, when you're by yourself, how many times have you been pulled over by the police and been mistreated in front of your kids and your woman? You know, so how many times you've been out with your woman and you know you run into just a group of just people who just want to hate on you just because they want to speak out, you know, and everything, and you know you try to keep it moving, you know, and they just want to follow you and with the chitter chatter. So you know a lot of that also stems into you wanting to be on guard, all the time as well, and that's why. And my
But here it is though. But part of that societal expectation, cultural norm is that as a man, you're supposed to be a protector. But the problem is, what does protection looks like?
I'm from a whole different era where a man was supposed to take care of his family, do for him, see about him, pay the bill, do all that stuff. Now that society has changed a little bit. I don't have that comfort no more. You know, I call it comfort because I did. But now I don't do it no more, so I have to turn it over to him. So now it's made me feel a certain way about my livelihood, about my decision, I feel like I'm disrespected a little bit because I'm not asked, I'm told.
And that's a mentality that, again, societal norms look different with women and versus men. So that is a whole different issue right there in itself, but it ties in. But like I said, as men, when we talk about protection, and this is something I had to kind of figure out and what that looked like, is what does protection look like? You know what I mean? We may think protection look like, hey, dude say something, I'm gonna punch him in the mouth.
Yeah.
You know, he run up, he get done up. That's general protection. But in actuality, what does that woman say? What does protection look like to her? You see what I'm saying? And that's what you were talking about, where we get that miscommunication. Because there are women out there be like, if you ain't a thug, then if you can't beat that dude up for saying something to me, then I don't need you. But then there's some women like, I don't need you to fight. I need you to provide. I need you to love me. I need you to protect me emotionally, mentally, physically, in the sense of being a husband. I don't need you to do all this other stuff. But if we're growing up in a society and cultural norm said this is what men do, what do you think we're gonna do? You see what I'm saying? So let's kind of move to six principles for manage your emotions. That's one of the hardest things for us as men to do sometimes, is manage our emotions. When we hot, we hot. When we not, we not. And how many times have we done got called to the carpet on one of those two things? Either we don't care at all or we care too much. I mean, think about it. I mean, you go to work, some days you be like, man, forget this place. I don't care about nothing that happened in here. I just want my paycheck and go home. How many times have we thought about that? I don't care what they do, what they say, I don't care. I don't care to speak to nobody. And then some days we care everything. Well, Bob didn't say nothing to me today, or so-and-so did this, or whatever. We care too much. But culturally, and in ways that we look at it, when you start caring too much, it becomes anger, and people look at it differently, right? Versus being uh, being emotional about something because you care, it's being emotional because you're angry. And that's not true. So part of these six ways of managing is, one, you have to be able to label emotions with plain language. How many of you go to the doctor and they telling you something and they use words that you have no clue what they're talking about? And you sitting there going, okay, now doc, what does that mean? You know what I mean? This is what we struggle at right here as men, is how to label our emotion with plain language. We don't know how to say, I'm hurt, I'm sad, I'm angry, I'm mad. We got 1,000 other words we use, but none of those we use. You see what I'm saying? We struggle with that. Clarify emotions using cocktails. What an emotional cocktail is, sometimes we have layered emotions. And the next slide is basically kind of a breakdown of what that looks like. So what a cocktail is, you can have different emotional things going on at the exact same time. You can be crying because you're happy. and being happy because of something else, and then all these emotions are stacked. What they form what is called a cocktail, okay, an emotional cocktail. No, that ain't Bacardi, and no, it ain't one of those kind of cocktails. It ain't that one. The third one is feel your emotions physically. How many of you know what your emotions feel like physically? You do?
Wait, give me an example.
See? No. So no, I'm about to give you one now. When you're talking about feeling your emotions, right? When you're angry, what do you physically feel?
Heat.
What does your body feel like?
Heat. Yeah. All of my face.
Heat. What else?
Adrenaline.
Like something that's telling you to stop, but you just can't.
No. What do you feel? Remember, we're talking about feeling, physical feelings.
Enraged.
Physical feelings.
Enraged.
And I'm gonna give you an example.
Your hair kind of spiky.
That can happen. Sweating.
Yeah, sweating.
You know, shaking maybe. You know what I mean? What was that? Heart beating fast. Exactly. Yep, heart beating fast. What about when you're afraid? What does that feel like physically? Something in your stomach. What else? Anybody else have a feeling? Goosebumps.
When you're nervous, you got your back on.
Yeah, there you go. You some shaking. So it's important to understand how to know what your emotions are physically, because when you know what they are, it's likely you can actually work yourself down or talk yourself down or talk yourself through an emotional experience by knowing what that feels like physically. Okay, and being able to articulate what it is as well. Time your emotions. This is something that's used quite a bit with people for anger management. It's time your emotions. And that what time your emotions is, if you have a watch on, the minute you start feeling something, I don't care if it's irritable or whatever, start timing. Watch the time. See how long it see how long exactly. See how long it takes you to go through that cycle, right? And so if it takes you an hour and a half, then you can set a goal and say, you know what? If I got an hour and a half, I'm gonna see if I can do it in an hour. Or if I can see it, I can do it in 30 minutes. That's the whole part of timing. Know your emotional kryptonite. You gotta know what sets you off. You gotta know what either sets you off, what makes you sad, what hurts you, what gets on your nerves, irritable, or whatever. You gotta know.
So what if like if you're an easy irritable person, like anything anybody does?
But it's always the one thing or a couple things that's gonna make you more irritable than everything else. It's gonna always be one. It's gonna always be. Hey, I'm just saying, you gotta know that. You gotta know. You have to know. Yeah, I'm serious. You gotta know. But think about it this way. How many times, and we are all men and some young men in here, how many times we found ourselves caught up in situations that we shouldn't have been into because we didn't ignore or didn't identify our kryptonite. We walked right into it knowing it was a kryptonite. And some of us did it on purpose. You know what I'm saying? Some of us did it on purpose. And it didn't always end out to your favor, did it? You always lost something in those situations that you couldn't get back because you ignored the kryptonite. You see what I'm saying? Validate your emotions. This is another key thing. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to be mad. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to hurt. It is okay. Your emotions are your emotions. There's nothing you can do about it. You were born with them. Everybody has emotions. It's what you do with those emotions that is the bigger key. When you're angry, what do you do with your anger? It's not being angry ain't wrong. Being mad is not wrong. It's what you do with that becomes wrong or right.
Somebody used to tell me a long time ago that feelings was a fact, and then another person told me feelings are a fact, but it isn't a fact that you have to react on the fact that you're feeling. So, I mean, your feelings, you are feeling something, but just as you was just saying, you don't have to react on that feeling. And I think that's what you was talking about, just walking into that kryptonite, just because that's what I do. When I get angry or something, I'm all on.
Exactly. And that's very true. Is your emotions are what they are. They're a natural response to your environment and to triggers in your environment. They're natural. Everybody got them. Everybody has them. So it's nothing wrong with it. You know what I mean? At all. Nothing. So it's basically what you do with those emotions when they happen. And that's why we were talking about the managing the emotions is when you start feeling the emotions, anything on this chart, when you start feeling it, the moment you start feeling it is the moment you start treating it. It's the moment you start doing something about it. You can't ever do nothing about it when you're on that end of the spectrum. If you don't get past halfway, it's done. You can't pull yourself back. That's why the worst thing to tell somebody in a situation is what? Calm down.
Yeah.
That's why you never get into a heated situation where people are heated and say, calm down. Never. That would never work because they're already past that point. They're not calming down. And only way for them to even get to a point of calming down is you have to physically remove them from the environment or situation in order for them to not be experiencing the kryptonite that caused them to have the emotional effect in the first place. That's the only way for them to step themselves back down. If you ever leave them around that situation or environment, they ain't calming down. It's going to get worse. And that's why we have those situations that we have as men, is that whenever we don't walk away, it takes you 3 seconds to do this. And by the time you get over here, 15 to 20 seconds later, your anger automatically start dropping. How many of you guys knew that? The moment you turn your back to a situation to walk away, 15 to 20 seconds later, your anger automatically starts to decrease. Automatically. Because you're not in the presence of that trigger anymore. That's what happens. This is what the emotional cocktail wheel looks like. Naming your emotions, whatever you name, you can name, you start to manage. If you can name what peacefulness feel like, if you can name what eager, interested, stressed, insulted, frustrated, I felt insulted. I felt upset, mad, angry, critical, contempt. If you're able to label and say these things, sad, surprised, disgust, you can manage them. If you can't say it, you can't manage it. It'll be very difficult for you to manage something that you can't articulate because you don't know and don't understand what it is.
Is it possible if someone else can know your kryptonite?
Huh? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. People know your kryptonite now.
That's what they thought.
Exactly. They know your kryptonite. They definitely know your kryptonite. They definitely know. Huh?
Sometimes they can push your button too.
That's what we're talking about. That button, you got to know what that button is. And if that person can push your button, you got to know when to walk away so they don't push it. Or you have to identify that button and dismantle it. And the hardest part is, with men, we don't want to dismantle that button sometimes. That button is our safeguard sometimes. It gives us permission to go in. You know what I'm saying? We all had that. We all had that button. We like, God, you can take everything else, but this button right here, just keep it right there because I need it just in case. Because that's that button that's going to set us off every time. And we know that. We hide it well, but we know it. You see what I'm saying? So let's keep moving. Here's some of the things to prioritize your health, prioritize physical health, cultural emotional wellness. Okay. And down to the 10, all right? Okay. So these are the things right here that you can utilize. And that's the last slide on here. Anybody want to take pictures? All right. Anybody else need to take one? Okay.
She works in the Uber driver. 2 minutes.
All right. All right, guys. Last slide. This is who I am. That's my info. Anybody seeking therapy or whatever, that's the information. So if you need to contact me, think about therapy, counseling, consultation. That's it. And I appreciate you guys listening. I appreciate you guys volunteering. Thank you.
Let's get back to guys, we're gonna figure out when for men and women a little bit different as well. So we'll make sure in our future sessions we'll get some of the men around where we can bring Rob back and just do stuff. All right, so anybody want to close this out, or we can close this out? Or?
Oh, you can close out. Yes, sir.
That's why we'll close out, guys. Well, thank you for this conference. Thank you.